Hey guys, Pedro here to tell you about the debut record from Stress Test, self-titled Stress Test, out February 28th on Transylvanian Recordings. This record has 11 tracks, 18 minutes, and they are an American crossover thrash metal band. Now, as you can expect from a record with 11 songs and 18 minutes in length, this record goes by super quickly. So the track listing on this album allows for even more of a dynamic movement on the record, if that's even possible. I like the fact that they alternated super short songs with tracks that go a little bit longer, a little bit over the 2-minute mark, close to the 3-minute mark. That makes for a much better listening experience than having a pocket of songs that are under 1 minute and then a pocket of songs that go close to 3 minutes. Having a more alternating style of tracks definitely makes for a better experience, and believe it or not, it actually makes the record feel slightly longer. It actually doesn't feel like you're listening for 18 minutes. It feels like it stretches out a little bit more. It gives it more of a full-length album feel, less of perhaps of an EP style approach. Now, once you get into the sound, the album is gritty. It has great sound, but it is a little bit raw. It is a little bit rough around the edges. It's not an overly produced record, but for crossover thrash, hardcore, punk, which is all the influences that this album has, this sort of approach, almost garage style approach, works really well. It adds not only that grit to the sound, it adds a lot of aggression and definitely adds a lot of intensity. This album still relies heavily on a more well-crafted, well-designed, well-approached guitar sound that drives the experience on every single song. The guitar sound, the guitar riffs, really on key and on point as far as of what I was expecting from this record coming in. Great thrash metal riffs, great thrash metal style melodies, pushing this album always forward. The guitar's always in the forefront, really taking front stage, if you will, as far as the sonic experience is all about. Then an element of sound that I wasn't expecting to be this predominant is the bass. The bass on this record really pops, and I think some of that grit, some of that rawness definitely comes from this bass sound that permeates throughout the entire record. In some songs you're going to find it a lot more predominant than others, but it's an element that stays pretty consistent from beginning to end and definitely adds that street thrash sound to the way this record comes together. The drums on this album at times are very heavy, a lot heavier than also what I was expecting coming in. But overall, I felt like the drum sound did a wonderful job adding substance, adding volume, adding heaviness to the record, and giving it the perfect platform for those guitars to then take the listener on a roller coaster ride across 11 songs and 18 minutes. Once you get down to the vocals are very consistent from start to finish. Perhaps the song where you see a little bit more of a change is Something Rather Than Nothing. That track offers a little bit more of a deeper range as far as the vocals are concerned, but outside of that closing song, every other track on the record feels very intense. It feels very aggressive. The vocals add to that intensity and add to that aggression that's already there in the sound, which makes this a very fun debut album. I mean, you could see some debut record style issues in terms perhaps of how at times the bass sound does go a little bit too far into the mix in terms of how predominant it becomes, and adding to that overall grit that's already there. You don't need to make the album more gritty. It already has that street sound to it. But all around, it's a super fun album to listen to. An album that goes by really quickly, as you could expect, 18 minutes, but it has great impact. I love the lyrics on this album. Very modern in terms of the impact, the social impact that the lyrics have and what is happening around the world today, as you would expect from a band that has crossover thrash metal elements, hardcore punk elements. So all of those things really play and go hand in hand. But it's a fun album to listen to, an album that perhaps sparks your interest as far as what this band will do going forward. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I picked 3 of the longest tracks on the record, and one of them is Suffer. This track has a very gritty thrash riff, but the reason why I picked this song is because there's a little bit of a movie interlude on this track that makes this song stand out. It gives it some uniqueness, in the way it sounds, in the way that interlude is used within the track, that bridge, I should say, is used within the track, almost reminiscent of One. One from Metallica has that piece too, when the soldier is in a coma and he's thinking to himself. So this track is not, from that standpoint, is not the same sort of approach, but what it does to the track and how it sounds in the track, very reminiscent of One by Metallica, and that's what's making this song really stand out. It's a club banger. It has tons of energy, very driven, great guitar sound, the bass really popping, and then the drums helping the overall delivery. After that, I gotta mention Stress Test, the self-titled song, and this track has great drums. The drums on this track are really heavy. Perhaps some of the heavier drum sound definitely happens in this song, or at least it's one of those where you could really feel how heavy they can go on that drum sound and not really distorting anything else around it. The guitars add a lot of groove on this track. They're not just thrashy melodies or thrashy riffs. In this song, they bring a little bit of groove metal, or they bring a little grooviness into those thrash riffs that also helps define this song or give it a little bit more of an individual palette. And that's really important when you have a record like this that's super short, super compact, to the point, quick songs. It's important to create certain elements within these tracks that allow the listener to identify these songs clearly from one to the other. And on this track, while in Suffer was that piece, that bridge piece, that movie bridge piece that really identifies that track, on this one I felt was the guitar grooviness really did the point. Last but definitely not least, the closing song on the record, Something Rather Than Nothing. This to me is the most complete track that the record offers, not just because of its length or because of its sound, but how it's put together. The bass does not pop as much on this song as on previous tracks, so the bass is a little bit better blended in the overall mix of the track. The song feels like it has more of a beginning, middle, and end. A lot of tracks on this record have a beginning, have a middle, but they don't necessarily have an end because they close very abruptly. This track has a little bit more of a sense of togetherness in terms of how it's presented, a more mature sounding track all around, and that's what identifies this song and gives it its own sense of uniqueness. This is it, Stress Test, self-titled debut record, Stress Test, out February 28th on Transylvanian Recordings. Let me know your thoughts on the band. Hit me up in the comment section. I'll see you all in the next video. Take care, guys.